Hey, what's up? I'm Eddie McNamara. I wrote a book called Brooklyn Hardcore. If you want to buy it, they have it in here. I wrote another book called Two Fare Zone. It's a short story collection. It's fucking grimy. It's about living in a two-fare zone, like a bus to a train. So it's an old school thing. Anyway, I'm gonna read I read about subculture, and so my novel's about the Brooklyn hardcore scene, and I was a part of that subculture. And my story is going to be a 9/11 story about rescue workers on 9/11. I was a rescue worker on 9/11, and that's the story I'm writing. This story is not about me, so the person in this story is not me. It's an amalgam of people I know. Okay. Thank you, beautiful. I stumbled north up 7th Avenue like a half-broken zombie. It was sunny the morning before the towers fell. Then a white cloud of smoke, thank you, and dust and debris and death hung over downtown, obscuring the sun. The aftermath of the World Trade Center collapse looked like a snow globe on the news. It looked like nuclear winter in person. There were so many sirens blaring and car alarms going off. I was probably concussed by the noise. Thousands of people walked away from the wreckage in a daze. I returned to my ambulance, 37 rows deep in the queue on West Street, and waited for the injured. But they'd never show. Nobody was coming out of that mess alive. I was lined up too far away from the action to even help wash the dust out of the eyes of the lucky ones who got out. I'm not a spectator. This is not what I signed up for. History was unfolding. I had to be part of it. Nobody wants to hear the war stories from the guy who peeled potatoes when the fighting was happening. I left the bus, that's what we call ambulances, and headed into the belly of the beast, to get my hands, and more importantly, my uniform dirty. I spotted a beat-to-hell trampled FDNY baseball cap on the ground, and threw it on. Firefighters get better-looking girls than volunteer EMTs. EMS is the low agency on the first responder totem pole, one rung above corrections, but several standard deviations below the NYPD and FDNY. The Port Authority don't even make the list, but they make twice as much money as everyone else. When it was covered in dust, my uniform looked like it belonged to a real Ground Zero hero. I joined the walking wounded on a parade. I saw my reflection in a car window. It looked like I came down 87 floors in that hell mess. Off-duty nurses from St. Vincent's Hospital, good souls who rushed into work to do what was needed to be done in an emergency, were the first people to help me. Real salt-of-the-earth types who grew up in Brooklyn, or Queens, or Staten Island, or the Bronx, and went to Catholic high schools because the zone public schools were terrible. Bleached blondes who didn't like children enough to become teachers. Ex-fuck-ups who only date cops and firemen, and dream about the day some civil servant who still sleeps in his childhood bedroom manages to save up $20,000 to buy her a diamond. Brown-skinned nurses who marry Irish boys so their kids come out light. Hard-drinking nurses who think they made it when they moved to the suburbs. Those are not my people. Even worse, they'd be able to tell the difference between my bullshit EMT uniform and the real deal. Nurses are cops, teachers are firemen. They're the opposite of dreamers. They're settlers who willingly trade the potential for happiness to have their basic needs met. They used to call these jobs white welfare, but I don't think you could say that anymore. It is what it is, though. Does anyone think we really need 40,000 cops and 10,000 firemen in this city? How many fucking murders and fires are happening every day to justify that kind of manpower? It's fake work for zilches. A handout to the former big dumb kids at the back of the classroom who got a 65 on every test, and a social promotion for teachers who didn't give a fuck because they were in on the scam too. I kept walking. The nurses were the kind of girls you pick up at Sloppy McNasty's Tuesday night happy hour. Planes don't crash into the World Trade Center every day. And when they do, you don't waste a tragedy on the likes of nurses from the neighborhood. On the next block, an English actor, not too many people recognized, handed me a bottle of water and thanked me. He was somehow more beautiful in person. He wore camel short shorts and had the legs of a rugby player. His chin was the size of my fist. His face so lean, his cheekbones jutted out like it was a 3D movie. He must have been on a steroid cocktail of testosterone, growth hormone for the size, and clenbuterol for the fat shedding. No one looks that good naturally. No Englishman has those kind of genetics. I stopped cold and gave him a 1,000-yard stare. That seemed appropriate given the situation. He stared back with great intensity until that shifted to empathy. We connected. Mission accomplished. I must have been a sight in my dust-covered blue uniform. It was real dust from where the buildings went down. I could have used any kind of dust and dirt and rubbed it into my body and uniform, but I was committed to making this look good. My face was caked with the stuff too, except for where I licked my finger and drew lines, which hopefully gave the impression that streams of tears flowed. A regular guy never gets to fuck anybody famous, but I'm convinced that with my attention to detail, my cock would be inside a movie star, or at least a TV star. His boyfriend inserted himself into our moments and tried to pull him away. We maintained eye contact. I mumbled, "Della morte, della more." The boyfriend seemed horrified, but I was referencing the movie I recognized the actor from. The direct translation is, from the dead, from love. And given the timing and circumstances, that was about as creepy as anything that could have come out of my mouth. I then said the American title of the film, Cemetery Man, and I was no longer a hero. I was just a creepy fan. The magic was gone, and the boyfriend was there. I kept walking. I doubled back downtown against the tide of soot-covered people looking like Victorian chimney sweeps. Robert De Niro's restaurant was the first of many to feed the victims and responders. The cooks and busboys and waitstaff were out on the West Side Highway giving out plates of food. I snagged some pasta with mussels and shrimp. It was cold. It was just okay. It was definitely not worth whatever they would normally charge for it. Some worn-out party girls and older churchy ladies distributed snack cakes next to De Niro's people. A very Italian-looking cop in a pressed and somehow immaculately clean uniform ushered the one in a leopard jacket into a dusty police car. What a racket these guys were already running. People were still burning alive, and they were banging the Entenmann's lady in the back of a dusty police car. Another one of the girls used to be an actress. I recognized her from a dumb comedy that people cared about a few years earlier. She played the ugly friend. She wasn't that pretty in real life either, but she was famous. A famous 5 is a real world 8. Bring that girl to a club or a party, and you can level up and shop in the 9 and 10 section. I approached. "I didn't expect to see you here," I said. "Thanks for helping." "Respect." I pounded my heart with my fist like I was some kind of shaved ape. "Sure, whatever," she said, in the graveliest New York accent outside of Boca Raton. "I gotta do this shit for my recovery. It's the rehab humility bullshit. You want some ding-dongs?" "Who can eat a ding-dong without something to drink?" I said. "It's like sand. Like I made it out of there," pointing to the wreckage. "I don't want to choke to death on a Drake's cake over here." She laughed hard so a snot bubble came out of her nose. If you want to buy a drink with that, let me take you to Motor City Bar, and I'll get you one, or maybe 10. I choose to interpret what you said as asking me on a date." "Deal," I said. "Let's bail." She shrugged. We walked northeast. "You ain't a cop, are you?" she asked. "Hell no," I said. "Fuck cops." Good. Part of my recovery process is identifying rock bottom. Getting day drunk and fucking a cop after the World Trade Center blew up would be a new low, even for me.